Today I'm going to be talking about one of the most difficult speaking skills to teach, converting written language to spoken language. My name is Lisa Lacroix, and I'm a speaking skills and communication skills coach as well as a content creator. My commitment is to changing the narrative on aging, especially for women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I believe that when we have more of our voice present in the world and we take up more space, we're willing to be more visible, we can change the way that we experience aging and the way that our culture perceives it. This live was intended specifically for authors, for poets, for people who've written books, largely because I have many friends in the last year or so who have published books. And I know one of the things that they have to do is to get out and read from their books in order to promote them. I have noticed that in that situation, as well as in many situations where content creators or people who are working on their speaking skills are converting written language or written text that they might have written themselves or that they might be reading from into spoken language, there is a disconnect. Most people, when they read, whether it's something that they've written themselves or whether they are reading from a book, go into read aloud mode. And trying to break people of that pattern is incredibly challenging. I might ask them to write a piece about who they are, about what they stand for, about who they're showing up for in the world, or about something they believe. For example, come up with 3 statements that use the prompt, most people think that da-da-da-da-da, but the truth is da-da-da-da-da. For example, one of mine might be, and I might write this down if I hadn't said it so many times, most people think that over 50, your world and your life are done. But the truth is that if we change the narrative on aging, the second half of life can be one of the most vibrant and exciting stages and chapters of all. So that would be something that people might write down. And when I ask them to speak it or to share it, they go into read aloud mode. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit about what that sounds like. So I'm reading from a book by a nice nin called A Woman Speaks, and read aloud mode generally sounds like this. What I wanted to do is to displace the access from thinking in terms of the many, which we thought was virtuous and unselfish, to thinking in terms of, first of all, of making the perfect individual who could receive with sensitivity the messages and the signals of other people's distress. So you can see that even though I'm reading with a fair amount of articulation, and I'm a pretty good reader, so I can read without too much effort, even though I haven't already read that particular section, I doubt you digested what I just said. I doubt you could play back to me what that passage was about. So the skill set that I teach, that I want to share with you today, is a cold reading technique that I learned from an acting coach named Margie Haber. I'm no longer a film and television actor, but at the time I was, and I did a lot of studying, as do all actors, because one of the things about being an actor is you have to constantly be working on your craft. So I took a cold reading class with Margie Haber in LA, I want to say 22 years ago. And this is a skill set that she gave us that has lasted with me since then. When you audition for a part in film and TV, you are given what's called sides. It's usually a piece of paper, 8 by 10 piece of paper with the script on it. And you are not expected, nor should you memorize it. Because part of the skill set, part of the craft is being present with the person you are acting with. That might be someone off camera, it could be a casting director, it could be another actor sitting beside the camera. But the goal is that you are in connection with the person and the present moment. These same skills are equally necessary for being effective in social media, in reading a book, whether it's your own book that you are now promoting, or even if it's a speech that you're delivering on a stage and you happen to have notes. Here's the skill set. Have the script be your friend. Hold it in your hand and go down to the text as you're reading it. And then once you know what's coming next, bring that line back up and deliver it to the person. So I'm going to show you again what it looks like if you do the typical way that people read aloud. And I'm telling you, this happens whether they're reading aloud from their own book or whether they're reading something they have never read before. And this is if they're reading it well. There is a new consciousness and awareness that we have to equalize the inner and the outer worlds. And for this, we have to have what the Thai people call the house of the spirit. Our job, when we are reading something that has been written already, is to make it come alive. That means we have to use the same speaking skills we use when we are talking extemporaneously, to allow time to think, to connect with ourselves, to connect with the audience, and to deliver the content in a way that lands. And then to let the listener digest it. The same is true if you are reading. So I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. And again, the technique is to come down to the page and read it while you are looking at it. But then as you know what is coming next, and sometimes you can use your thumb or whatever to mark your place. And then as you know what is coming, you deliver the rest of the sentence to the person listening. And take time to let it land. So here's a section of this book that I will attempt to apply this technique to. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to go down and I'm going to take the information off the page and I'm going to deliver it back to you. Now, the will to create, or creative will, which pursues the artist and haunts the artist, I found to be applicable to our individual life, to our personal life, as it is to a work of art. That is, we do have a will, a possibility, and a potential to change ourselves. And doing that is not an egocentric or a tuned-in activity. It is an activity that ultimately affects, influences, and transforms an entire community. So I feel the great changes in the world will come from a great change in our consciousness. We have become more aware and we must not despair. So I hope what you're seeing is that the same techniques that we use in our speaking skills, which are using pause, using a variation of tempo, altering the volume, using depth to lean in and to lean out, along with allowing the content to land, is what is needed in order to take written language off of the page and embody it and to make it real, to make it present, to make it come alive. This is one of the most difficult things to teach as a speaking skill. So if you are someone who is a poet or an author, or if you know you need to write your speech out before you give it, I don't want you to sound like you are reading from that book or from that script or from that presentation. I want you to make those words come alive. And in order to have the words come off the page, in order to convert written language to spoken language, we need to take the time to connect with ourselves, to connect with the text, and to connect with the listener. And Margie Haber's cold reading technique for actors is something you can benefit from. And that means that you're coming down to the page to get the information and delivering it to the listener, allowing it to land before you go back for the next section. And then once you have the next section, you bring it back and deliver it to the listener. Give it a shot. Let me know how it lands with you, if it makes a difference, and pay attention to what it feels like when someone is reading from a text. The first thing is always awareness. Notice when it sounds like reading, We are so used to the sound of read aloud from school that we almost don't notice that there is a complete lack of embodiment in the reading of it when we do it that way. That's what I have for you today. I'm going to do a fast look at your comments. Sounds like a motivational speech. I take that as a compliment, and I do believe that the important thing to do is to find what is in a motivational speech, which is embodiment, which is connection. I don't know if it sounds like a motivational speech because of the content, because it's aspirational, although Anais Nin is a very aspirational writer, in my opinion. I think it's more that I'm doing my best to illustrate what it means to embody the words, and a motivational speech has to do that. It landed, Rainbow said, thank you. And Loomheart, I couldn't even tell you were reading. And that's what you want to do. Whether you've written something beforehand, you always want to be approaching it in a way that, if you need to think of it this way, that you're fooling people into thinking you're not reading. And the important thing is, notice that I can do that even though I'm reading this. I hadn't read that before. So even though I'm in the midst of reading it and discovering it for the first time, I can still bring it back to my audience in a way that is connected in the moment. I am committed to people telling their story and to finding their voice and to sharing what it is that they know about or what they are passionate about, because I believe that forming connections with other human beings requires us speaking up and taking up space and being willing to put ourselves out there in the world. I think it's super important. So my guess is that you have a story or experience in the world or some kind of content, expertise, passion, or something you care about that matters and that someone needs to hear about. If you are interested in speaking skills content or artful aging content, changing the narrative on aging, or if you happen to have an ADHD like brain do, as I do, these are the types of things I create content around, and I am pretty regular both on TikTok, and I repost on Instagram, and also I'm increasingly working on building my YouTube channel. So please follow me, connect with me, let me know what you're all about, and thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you.